So I discovered this gem of an article recently, and I was in tears laughing at the absurd Marxist feminist misinformation that was marinating within each paragraph, like a wet dog turd outside in a midday sun. No, I wouldn't even call it misinformation. It was more like beliefs children would hold after thinking for a couple seconds about real-life, complex, important issues. It is a child's point of view of economics. No, it's a female's point of view of economics, and it's biologically driven, and I can prove it. Let's begin with the article. Throughout history, women's contributions have routinely been overlooked, forgotten, or erased by men eager to take credit for their ideas. That's one of the guiding premises behind Miss Monopoly, the new version of the classic board game from Hasbro. Featuring a bright-eyed, coffee-clutching girl boss in a sharp-fitted blazer, the game starts female players off with more money than men and pays them more for pass and go. It also celebrates women trailblazers and spotlights women who have challenged the status quo, according to Hasbro. Instead of buying up properties, the company explained in Tuesday's news release, players have the opportunity to purchase groundbreaking inventions and innovations made possible by women throughout history. So this sounds like a classic feminist dumb idea per usual. It reminds me of the useless British college broad recently who made an anti-manspreading chair. While the anti-manspreading chair claims to remediate a non-issue in society, this new Monopoly version promotes class conflict and condones paying a certain group more than another just by gender alone. You know, it's not like equalizing outcomes lead to the persecution of specific groups or the creation of unfair rules. Wow, this sounds like a really fun game. Can you imagine having a SJW feminist game night? Another change in this version allows players to invest in real-life inventions that women in history purportedly created. Inventions such as Wi-Fi and chocolate chip cookies. First of all, how does this game work if you can't buy properties, but instead you have to invest in inventions? Property denotes exclusivity in ownership. But in regards to investing in an invention, inclusivity is the name of the game. Any business or inventor welcomes any and all investment. So does that mean that the new game is not competitive, rather it is cooperative, and there's not a winner? That makes sense, since it is marketed to women. They don't want to earn more money in the free market by competing with men. Instead, they want a government edict to do it for them. Back to the article. But to those familiar with Monopoly's history, it seems like one trailblazing woman was conspicuously absent. If Hasbro actually wanted to celebrate women's empowerment with their new Ms. Monopoly game, why not finally acknowledge that a woman invented Monopoly in the first place? Tweeted Mary Pylon. That would be Lizzie Maggie, I think that's how you pronounce it, who introduced the world to a groundbreaking innovation of her own more than a century ago. It was called the Landlord's Game, but because the man who claimed the idea for his own and sold it to Parker Brothers changed the name, we know it today as Monopoly. That man, Charles Darrow, would ultimately make a fortune off the board game, while Maggie reportedly earned $500, probably less than it cost her to patent the concept in the first place. So I did some research on this Lizzie Maggie and found several pro-feminist articles on her. Apparently she invented and patented the game at the turn of the century, only for a man named Charles Darrow, like it said in the article, in the 1930s to steal the, quote-unquote, steal the idea and sell it to Parker Brothers, which made Darrow a millionaire. Maggie, a feminist and economic inequality advocate, created her version in 1904, and it was called the Landlord's Game. She created it in order to educate the wider population on capitalism's effect on widening the income disparity and the dangers of monopolies. It's curious that Maggie, who secured a patent on her game in 1904, would apply for something that establishes a monopoly of ownership on her game that condemns monopolies. Doesn't make sense. Not only is she an inventor, but she's also a hypocrite. The panoply of articles I found about her failed to include that there were several versions of this type of board game circulating in the United States and Great Britain. Also, Darrow based his game, the version that eventually became the Monopoly game we know today, on a Quaker version of the game, not Maggie's. Now again, it wasn't really clear whether all those games that were circulating was based off of Maggie's idea. I couldn't find that information, so I don't know if someone's obfuscating that or I don't know. The articles also push the narrative of a man stealing the ideas of women, which is an often used feminist narrative, and it's old. It's getting very old. Moreover, what I discovered is that Maggie merely secured a patent for her game. She eschewed to take the steps of investing in the game and getting it mass-produced. Darrow, on the other hand, invested a large sum of his own money into the production of his game. It seemed to me that Darrow showed initiative. Maggie did not. On an unrelated note, did I mention that men tend to be more competitive and ambitious than women? Back to the article. Though that history was excavated in a decade-long legal battle and is documented in Pylon's extensively researched book, Hasbro still maintains that Darrow was the creator of Monopoly. A spokeswoman told the Los Angeles Times on Tuesday that Maggie, a vocal feminist who defied the odds by getting a patent for her invention, was one of the pioneers of land-grabbing games, a number of which have been popular throughout history. My gut reaction, wrote one Twitter commentator on Tuesday, is that this is a slap in the face of Elizabeth Maggie. Well, at least this article addressed the fact that land-grabbing games were popular in Maggie's time. The article goes on to admit that Darrow based his version of the game off the Quaker modified version, but ends the article lauding Maggie and feminism anyway. This rhetoric that men steals women's ideas is infuriating. This article repeatedly claims that women's contributions have routinely been overlooked, forgotten, or erased by men. This is a flat-out lie. The left consistently marginalizes and disparages erudite, courageous, accomplished women and their contributions when those women's ideologies does not fit the narrative of the left, i.e. Margaret Thatcher, Ayn Rand, Phyllis Schlafly, and most recently Romy Millennial, Lauren Southern, and Candace Owens. So it's the left who claims that men steal women's ideas and marginalizes them. However, it's the left who marginalizes conservative women. Interesting. I want to share with you Maggie's economic ideology and two of her quotes that were included in this article. The first one reads as follows. In a short time, I hope a very short time, men and women will discover that they are poor because Carnegie and Rockefeller maybe have more than they know what to do with. Now, this is just patently wrong. Profit incentive provided by free and open markets compels men like Rockefeller and Carnegie to invest in a large infrastructure of labor-saving, tremendously efficient machines in order to create products that massively improve the lives of customers. Without that incentive, and without geniuses of production like Rockefeller and Carnegie, and most recently Walton, Jobs, Bezos, just to name a few, the human race would still be riding horses, burning candles, and crapping outside. And this is her second quote. They learn the quickest way to accumulate wealth and gain power is to get all the land they can in the best localities and hold on to it, she wrote, adding, let the children once see clearly the gross injustice of our present land system, and when they grow up, if they are allowed to develop naturally, the evil will soon be remedied. Maggie's economic ideology is based off Henry George's theory that is based on the belief that people should own the value they produce themselves, but that the economic value derived from land, including natural resources, should belong equally to the members of society. What he's actually advocating for is a de facto socialist system, the type practiced by National Socialists of Nazi Germany. Maggie then claims that merely owning land and sitting on it generates wealth. That is patently wrong. No one in their right mind will purchase large swaths of very expensive land only to remain idle. That would be a foolish investment. People buy land mainly for the purpose of harnessing the natural resources and later selling them. Maggie, however, is probably referring to properties who possess land for uses of rent, i.e. residential property. So apparently she proposes that landlords sit idly on property whilst collecting rent from their poor tenants. It's not like the landlords perform routine maintenance, hold full liability on the mortgage, pay employees, utilities, and all the necessary taxes, make improvement on the property, provide good customer service, and all that stuff to retain customers. Helena Cronin, a British Darwinian philosopher, has done extensive work on the sex differences in males and females. Her findings disprove the feminist myths of the wage gap and the glass ceiling. She says, quote, men are far more ambitious, status-seeking, hierarchical, single-minded, opportunistic, persevering, risk-taking. They are far more dedicated to winning, end quote. Also, according to her and many other gender realists, women's interests and preferences lie with people. So that being said, Maggie was motivated by helping society or people with income inequality. Darrow, on the other hand, was more ambitious, status-seeking, hierarchical, single-minded, opportunistic, persevering. You get it. He was a risk-taker. Maggie's and Darrow's actions and motivations in regards to the game can be explained biologically, not by ascribed motivations by feminists who seek to spread their unfounded and trifling narrative. Maggie didn't promote and mass-produce her game because she was less opportunistic, less ambitious, and less likely to take risks. Plain and simple, cut and dry. In my opinion, Maggie just seemed like a busybody feminist activist who suffered dearly from Dunning-Kruger. She probably had a need to satiate a desire to help society and the poor by doing her part in creating this dumb-ass game. I mean, who likes Monopoly anyway? I wouldn't want my name connected to that bore-fest of a game. The same socialist and feminist ideology in which Maggie followed was widely prevalent within certain female milieus around the turn of the century. It's usually single mothers, old spinsters, and young vapid hoes that ascribe to these stupid ideologies. Family-oriented women, on the other hand, tend to be more traditional and conservative. Since there are far more single mothers and unattached women these days, it's no wonder feminism and socialism is on the rise in the 21st century. I mean, it's a good thing that women don't have the right to vote, right? Motherfucker.